Awesome, everybody. Well, my name is Matthew Root. I feel like we should just get started. There's a lot of great content today. My name is Matthew Root. I'm on the outbound product management team here at Google Cloud, and I lead a lot of our customer councils. And one of my passions that I love to do is our community engagement and community webinars. For those of you that have missed, recently we did a webinar on continuous integration. We did one on conversational analytics. Both of those are available in the community. I'll send links to those if you ever wanted to watch them too. They were great sessions, but today's session is really awesome. It's all about our conversational analytics API. We've got a great group of partners from Matt from 66 Degrees and great product managers on the team that are going to be going through and talking all about this great new feature, new product that we're rolling out and things that you should take a look at. A little housekeeping things at the beginning. There's a lot of great content today, and there's going to be a lot of questions, and everyone's going to have questions that they'd like to do. So what you need to do for questions is do not raise your hand. We're going to have a lot of people on the call here. We want to make sure that we ask the right questions and get everyone available. So in the bottom right corner, there are the little dots. There's a question and answer section, a Q&A. So do not put your questions in chat. Make sure you're putting them in the Q&A. And what that allows us to do is crowdsource what are the most important ones and understand as we have time permitted at the end which ones to answer. And then also it helps us understand what do we need to do content-wise for FAQs, Google Docs, all the documentation, all the great things for our features as we go through. Just as a reminder, please, we've been doing this for a while. Keep your microphone muted. If we hear sounds, I'll have to mute you for it. But we've been doing this for a while. Everyone knows the deal. And with that, I'm really excited to introduce Product Manager Richard on the call. Richard Kuzman, would you like to introduce yourself and take the lead?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Richard Kuzma. I'm a product manager here at Google for conversational analytics. I'll actually grab the screen if that's okay, Matt. Can I just get a thumbs up if you are able to see this? Anyone? Great, thank you so much. So yeah, I'm a group product manager here at Google focusing on conversational analytics. It's surfacing in quite a few places as well as the services underneath. I'm also joined here by Piyush. We're going to hear who's another product manager here on our team who's really doing a ton of amazing work on the API, often the first person some of you may be interacting with, troubleshooting any issues, figuring out like what you can build, how we're being really transformative here. We're also going to get to hear from Steve, who's built out some really amazing demos and capabilities and quick starts we want to get in your hands so you can build faster, focus less on ramping up and more on delivering value to your employees, to your company, to your organization, to your users. And really excited to hear what Matt is doing over at 66 Degrees with the API and their customers so far. So big agenda for today. We're going to start with what is conversational analytics? What is this API? Why should you choose to build with this API over the many options that you have? And we know there are a lot of options out there. Talk a little bit about the security, the privacy, the things we really deeply care about at GCP, whether it's our core products and love, or whether it's something new like this. And then we'll get into multi-agent frameworks, which we really see as the future, how to get started, hear a bit more from 66 Degrees, and then see what's on the roadmap. So the reason why we're really here, right, is that dashboards have traditionally been this amazing tool for data visualization, but they're static. They're not always well suited for modern workflows. And as teams like marketing and sales and operations move further from the data team, right, extracting those insights that you use to run your business gets slower, creates inefficiencies. Right? And these dashboards can answer 80% of the questions, which are awesome, and they're these incredible assets. But 20% of the time, we know users have to rely on analysts for ad hoc updates, which can take a day to make the request. It goes into the backlog. And even when you do get the answer, sometimes it's out of date. But fundamentally, it's delaying your ability to make decisions faster in the business. So when you need more information than the dashboard provides, and you don't want to have to wait to write another query, to fight with the rest of the ad hoc backlog across the entire organization, you don't want to feel that frustration, then you want a more dynamic analytics solution so you can have real-time, still governed self-service insights. And that's really the power of AI for BI and our vision here, and taking that self-service to the next level by empowering each and every user, each and every decision maker to ask better questions of data, to go deeper, to ask those questions in a really natural way and receive instant relevant insights. So that means that anyone, not gated strictly by technical skills, can explore the data, can find those hidden patterns, and gets to make faster data-driven decisions. So it's not only going to reduce the BI backlog and frankly free up the analytics team to be more of a strategic resource. We're also seeing an improved data literacy across the organization because people can ask that first question and then go deeper and peel back the layers. And these tools, are not only querying, we're building charts, we're showing the tables underneath, and so it's generating new avenues for exploration. Right, we see this as being part of a much wider ecosystem than merely getting the answer, and so fostering that deeper understanding and getting that data democratization is what we're really, really excited about. And here at Google, we're always thinking about both ends of the spectrum, right? So if you're code first, here on the top left, right, you're used to working in Python, in SQL, very technical, or whether you're less technical, right? You're more of a consumer, you're more of a viewer. We're always looking to build upon that SaaS foundation, the semantic modeling from products like Looker, build in an API and embedded analytics first way, because we recognize that not all insights come, in the same package, in the same format. But where we really see AI coming together is bringing the technical and the non-technical, but still maintaining all of that governance, all of that security, and that ability to bring the answers to the users, whether it's via the API or whether it's via natural language. And so because of that, we're super, super excited to announce the Conversational Analytics API. We did this at Next, which works across the data cloud, not just Looker, not just BigQuery, wherever your data resides. And we're bringing that interaction to users wherever they are, right? Meaning that this is the same agent that is available through first-party applications and products like Looker Conversational Analytics that many of you probably have used already. This is going to be surfaced and is surfaced in BigQuery, coming to agent space, but also able to be surfaced wherever you get information. So that could be in Slack, that could be in chat, that could be in your own custom web app, that could be, as we'll discuss later, in your own multi-agent framework. And so we're already seeing quite a difference and quite an impact across the entire suite of products. So even though our demos today will be very chat-centric, don't think that that's the only means. As you're taking the same agent and maybe for one team using it in one way, for another team, another group of users, exposing it in a different way. So up here on the top left, we see this native integration with BigQuery Data Canvas, which is one of my favorite tools to analyze data with, right? If you're not familiar with it, you've got DAGs, building out individual nodes, building a canvas that you can kind of scroll and navigate. But we use the assistant to not only ask questions and get answers back in chat, but actually to create live nodes and artifacts along the way, like charts, like SQL, like Python, that you can go back to, that you can share, you can reference. At the top right, we see one of the biggest, most powerful ideas is, hey, my users are already going to the dashboard to get information. I really want to embed this chat right in the dashboard so they can go a little bit deeper. They can slice in different ways. So we absolutely want to meet that use case, both from a pure API standpoint, as well as what will come with Looker and iframe embeddings. At the bottom right, we have Looker Conversational Analytics that many of you have already used and touched for that pure kind of chatbot. Let me go through answer by question, answer by answer, go deep, a little bit more traditional. And then we're seeing a ton of growth and development in what customers are building with the 3P API, because they want a different experience. They want to show some things. They don't want to show others. You want to have that auditability. You can really choose and define whatever form factor you need. So this is all about making data more accessible, more intuitive, and inherently just more valuable to everyone, no matter where you need that. So let's dive a little bit into what makes building with the Conversational Analytics API like such an obvious choice. So first, you're really focused on customization here, right? So high quality context, whether it's through a semantic layer or a ton of work that we're doing with agents to have structured context, to have suggested context, to pull context from throughout the Google ecosystem, is what's going to give that agent analyst the ability to answer questions more accurately that are tailored to your business in the exact same way that an analyst on your team has to, learn the business, learn the data really well. We want to provide the means to get context to the agent. We get a ton of accuracy via the semantic layer, and by integrating deeply with Looker, the conversational analytics API enhances accuracy and gives us much more reliable metrics, reliable insights. So you're using the same metrics in the same governed way, really consistently. Oh, I'm seeing. How is this? Is this better, anyone?
Yes.
There we go. Thanks so much. And then packaging this. Okay, right. That's probably the best thing I could have done all day. Jeez. And then packaging this in a way really that's giving APIs for full control. Again, use what you want, use what you don't want. But having a few key decision paths that we want to certainly drive people down, but give you all the flexibility to use what you want, leave what you don't. And then last but not least, we know there are a ton of options out there to go build, and probably everyone here has tried to roll your own agentic framework, try to talk to data. But we recognize too that when models change underneath, where there's a newest technique, right, you want to focus much more on the business than trying to keep up a ton of tools, a ton of services. So we have dedicated teams constantly working on quality, constantly working on evaluations, right, to provide you some of these primitives that are going to let you build what you need, focus on your use cases, and not necessarily everything underneath, but peel back as many layers as you need to. In addition to the context that's really coming into play with Looker Semantic Layer, we're also really excited about the ability to configure more of a continuous agent context as part of the user prompt, right? So we're thinking, hey, your LookML model might be used in the same way across two teams, but maybe some prefer different special instructions, right? We all have teams that have different acronyms, different terms, different glossaries. So being able to bring in field descriptions, business knowledge, special instructions, example question and answer pairs, things that are super, super helpful, especially in the BigQuery universe where you don't have something like Looker, gives you way more power to build the agent that's smart, to change it, to update it, to tweak it over time based on feedback, and really have that as a living asset, right? So we're thinking about this not just in storing the context with the agent, but drawing from wherever you have it, whether it be that LookML, whether it be Dataplex. But we're seeing this to great effect as we continually try to build knowledge from your business into your agents. Now, how does LookML help us, right? For those of you who may not be, as power users of LookML or newer to Looker, there's this, amazing ability to standardize metrics, to lock in the clear definition for a vital metric that's the same across the business. I'm sure we've all experienced it before where two teams are talking, you think you're talking about the same thing, but it's actually a bit different. Being able to then define those data relationships, to flatten out those tables, to see how they clearly connect, primary key, foreign key. And also we know that businesses run not just on metrics, but on time slices. So real reliable, consistent time dimensions for days, however you define a week, a day, a quarter, for accurate and consistent reporting really, really matters, because nobody wants to go into that meeting with their boss and be off by a day. So overall, we really see Looker Semantic Layer as significantly reducing the load on the LLM. Right? And LLMs are so powerful right now, but they can't get everything. And so we want to limit the space for any possibility of hallucinations. So we get more accurate responses built on governed metrics, more consistent across the entire organization.
Richard, I'm sorry to interject. Guys, please feel free to use the Q&A section available. That's on the bottom right of the window. That way, we will make sure that we are answering all your questions, and the questions that we are not able to get to, we will respond back in the email. We want to answer, we want to get as many questions and answer for everybody here as possible. Thank you so much. On to you, Richard.
Awesome. Thanks, Nigda. And big plus one to that. And please make sure to vote on ones. I think when, knowing we'll have limited time here, and I'm sure there's a ton of questions, we'll start from what's most popular, collect the answers for the others, give them back out. And again, I think one of the best parts of being here, of engaging with things like the BI Customer Council and SNGDA and that, is that we get to make this a much more ongoing conversation, right? We don't just want to give you a shallow answer because we're time limited. We really want to go deep on some of these things and make sure that we don't just answer the question you ask. We get to collaborate together as design partners here to think about what you're trying to build in the future and make sure we're meeting your needs before they become pain points. We'll take the hand.
Yeah, just a quick question. This is Rudra here from, and actually, recording would be shared, which is a good news. But if questions are being answered, is there a common place where we can see the answers? We'll get our individual questions, but there could be a lot of question and answers would be there, which we can benefit from cross learning that one. So do we see any common area where we can see now and even a past question and answers?
What we'll do is we'll do a recap at the end, and when you get the recap email, as we mentioned before, we'll have all the questions in there with the responses in there. We want to make sure that we keep the flow going here, so let's make sure that all the questions go in the Q&A, and then if we answered questions in the chat, it would disrupt the whole conversation of watching the presentation versus this. So let's what we'll do is we'll have a Google Doc or a Google spreadsheet with all the questions and the responses in there for everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Well, let's go back to the presentation. And one of the things I'm super excited about is this agentic architecture, right? And for those of you who've been following LLMs for the past few months, for the past few years, we've really seen this incredible takeoff in capabilities, the ability to think for longer, to reason, to use tools, right? And we're seeing the explosion of things like MCP and ADK. So not only the frameworks for agents, but frameworks for tools. And that's really core to what we're building here. Right, in that this agent can take your questions, the context that you built in, right? Whether it's fetched from your source of truth, whether it's hand authored and curated because it's something super special to your team or whoever is going to use that agent. It passes it through to a reasoning engine. That reasoning engine has access to a ton of really great purpose-built tools. So we get the flexibility of an LLM that's able to think and reason, powered by some of the latest and greatest of the Gemini models that are consistently at the top of the leaderboards, but able to use those tools that query Looker directly, right, that are able to do more advanced analytics like forecasting, like key drivers, correlation, and beyond, and connect securely to your data, ensuring that we're using the end user credentials. We're not sharing data with anyone who should not be able to see that. Right. And again, these are all supported, backed by Google teams who are constantly working on, how do we improve the experience, whether it's more crisp bug messages, whether it's greater stability, whether it's greater accuracy. Getting to work with these folks day in, day out is one of the best parts of the job for sure. And then at the top right, something I think is really important. We get asked, hey, do I have to show SQL or Python to my team? My sales team doesn't want to see that. We pass out a string of messages, right? So in that, you ask a question, you start getting an answer from an agent that says, hey, I'm thinking. It's updating you on its thinking process. It's going to make that query. It's going to return data. It's going to return a chart. It's going to write Python, get insights. But you don't have to show all that to your users. Again, customizability, the flexibility of the experience lets you take that, audit it as much or as little as you want to, store it for later, right? For your teams to look at, to trust, to analyze, to improve the agents with, but you only have to show the final answer if you want. And that streaming capability also lets you build in that experience that feels snappy, that feels responsive to your users, because nobody likes waiting a long time for an answer. And finally, this API flexibility gives you so much power to extend and customize your data applications. So we really get to a place where not only are people getting the answers they need, they're getting them in the form factor that they need. You get to personalize that experience to someone who wants to see SQL or to someone who doesn't want to see SQL in the dashboard or in the simple Google style search bar where you just route it through to whichever agent is the right one to answer the question. This also gives you the ability, we're seeing customers monetize their insights, monetize their data to their own customers. So you get to increase data adoption throughout your organization. You get to serve whatever group in whatever way with whatever answers that they need just in time. And so I'll now pass it over to Piyush to talk through in a little bit more depth, like what are the current conversational analytics API capabilities and what can you do with them and what can you start building with? Piyush, I'm happy to drive and run the slides still if that's easy for you.
Thanks, Richard. I think I'll take over because I'll also be running the demo. So I'll go ahead and share my screen.
And by popular demand, make sure you make the slides big enough.
Yes. Can we see my screen now? Is it visible?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. So I think by this point we've understood essentially what we are trying to do here is we've had the core foundations of Looker. We've had the core foundations in the entire GCP ecosystem with VQ, with Studio. So that sets up on the data foundation. And what we're trying to do is now bring the power of agents to all of our core data experiences. And we understand that with agents, what's very, very important is to give them context, to give them memory. And that is essentially what we have been focused on the last couple of months. We've come together to understand that in our philosophy to meet users where they are, it's also very important to give them a touch point with the API so that you can go ahead and actually build experiences wherever you wish. So that's been the whole analogy of why we've invested so much into the API. And to put some more light on the foundations that Richard just shared. So this is how the construct of the API overall looks. And I'll cover each of these tiles briefly. If you look at agent operations, that's the standard CRUD that we do on any API. So you have create, update, get, list, and delete. We continue to add more functionalities here as per the use cases that we see in preview. A very important second capability that we've brought on the table is to share agents. So we realize that users want to be able to create agents and also share with them. There is essentially a view where you have agent creators and agent consumers within the org. A data analyst is expected to create an agent, go and configure it, set up the entire context, and then there are business users who would actually go and have conversations with the agents. So we made sure that this can be done in a secure way using GCP IAM policies. So by virtue of inheriting the IAM structure, we have now made this simple and intuitive, and I'll be covering some of these roles in one of the later slides. Now, coming to the next important thing, we all know that agents love context, and this is what makes them answer questions better. Now, in order to make versioning available over here, we went ahead and created as a pilot MVP 2 versions of context. So it's called staging and published. And essentially, you can go ahead and keep making changes to these 2 versions. The first time I'm creating an agent, I'm going to have a staging context, which automatically gets promoted to being a published context the moment that agent is essentially created. And post that, we can continue to make iterative changes on the context and see which version works better in terms of Q&A accuracy. Now, context being very important, and like Richard shared earlier, we have multiple options to add the business glossary, to add golden question answer sets. This feature of context versioning is what helps you test it. So you make changes to the config, go and hit run, see your evals, and get an understanding of where is the context standing. Data sources we fairly covered. We have a simple plugin to Looker Explores, Looker Studio, and BigQuery. In terms of how we configure, we can connect up to 10 BQ tables at a time, 1 Studio resource, and 1 Looker Explorer at the moment. We have feedback from preview customers that they would like to connect to multiple explorers, and there is work in progress on that front as well on our side. Now, this is the part where you have actually created the agent. The second important bit that comes essentially when you start to have conversations with the agent. The first part was Google managed agents. The second part that you see now is Google managed conversations. So if you look at the chat block, there are essentially 3 different options. The first one is chat using data agent ID, which is chatting with the Google managed agent. So having conversations with the Google managed agent. But in this case, there is no storage of what you do in conversation. So no create, get, or list or the CRUD operations on the conversation that you see in the adjacent time. This is a conscious design choice. A lot of customers wanted to have Google managed agents, but self-managed conversations, which is why we had to design it in this way. The second option in the chat method, wherein you essentially start having chat with a data agent ID plus a conversation ID, is essentially where it's a Google managed conversation. And in any such case, you would be able to run the CRUD operations of the conversations, that is create, get, and list for now. And the third option essentially is chat using inline context, which is neither is the agent managed by Google nor is the conversation, but you can just connect to a data source and keep moving forward with the Q&A. Multi-turn is definitely supported at this point in the AI landscape. I think we've had fair amount of exposure for everyone as layman users to a lot of chat tools, and multi-turn is like one fundamental concept that is needed in order to have better conversations with the agent. We are going to share a lot of getting started materials in the end as well. These are a few hyperlinks. There is an elaborate set of docs that we have published. You can connect it using the REST endpoints. You could also go and essentially do a pip install on the SDK. And then there is a Streamlit app. We'll be adding one more link to this. So we published some of our golden demos yesterday in open source, and that's available in a Git library. So it essentially gives everyone the power to connect with datasets provided by us and essentially go and start creating your web applications. Now, last but not the least, I think prompting is the single most important bit for an agent. We've created a guide to help you understand how you should define different synonyms, tags, descriptions for your tables, and essentially create an agent which is able to understand more of the context. Now, going further on the current capabilities, a lot of this I think was also covered in the previous slides when Richard gave an overview of the architecture. So there is a set of underlying services, and the whole concept, we'll see this in the demo as well, as there are two pieces to the whole story. The first part is that you're trying to understand the schema, and the second part is that you're trying to construct the query. So that's what essentially comes out through the entire Q&A bit. So we are able to convert the natural language prompt or question into refined SQL or NL to Looker query, pull out context for the table or for the data source through other internal rich APIs, which then moves on to the agent's reasoning engine. Now, the agent would essentially talk to Gemini at this step and come up with its answer, which is then constructed in the form of summaries and charts. Now, all of these are different services that we had seen in the architecture before, and that's the whole magic happening behind the scenes in the agent's reasoning engine. Automatic retries is another feature wherein we know that LLMs can be a bit tricky to work with. So we make sure that if the answer is not received from the LLM in the first go, we do multiple iterations of run so as to get the right answers. Along with this, we have some advanced capabilities wherein we try to convert natural language to Python, and that's called as a code interpreter. It is essentially what helps you power the agent to respond to advanced questions, which is, so let's say you want to do a period over period analysis or anomaly detection or forecasting. These are not very intuitive in the BI and the data analytics layer today, but NL to Python code interpreter essentially helps us do a lot of this. So it's a simple toggle in the API configuration that you can turn on and off at any point in time. Okay, multi-turn we've covered, so I'll skip that. Now, quickly moving on to another important piece with regards to security. We are heavily invested in enterprise for sure, but what also comes as a challenge with enterprises is to understand how your data is moving. So this diagram actually tells you how from your natural language question, the first thing which is going to happen is in the CA layer, essentially you are going to invoke or fetch the schema. What I said earlier also, that there are two pieces. You fetch the schema and you construct the SQL query. So from your question, you go and fetch the data, which then also gets injected with the context. And that's when we make a call to Gemini. Now, in terms of context, there are multiple ways we've set up to create it. You can always go and author it, so you can write it down. But there's also a feature coming up, which is called as a suggest context API, wherein Gemini will understand the data source and give you suggestions on what the context for the agent should be. So that's step number 3 and 4, where Gemini will infuse, essentially help you build the context and then generate the first part of the query. The query is then talking back in step 5 to the metadata, and the output is constructed in step 6 in terms of what relevant data needs to be pulled from the source. And then we go back to Gemini in order to summarize and create a visual response out of the whole flow. Now, through all of this, the data flow is encrypted, and we also make sure that none of this data is essentially used for any kind of training. So this is the only part that your data is essentially being used. To summarize in one line, metadata to build context for the agent for your specific Q&A is essentially that is happening through this entire flow. Now, these are some very common FAQs that we get in terms of how we respect things with respect to privacy, things with respect to access control in different in the entire data landscape. So row and column level access, yes, it is fully respected. How it is done, to quickly answer, we saw that there are two pieces. There is agent creation, and then there is conversation or having a chat with the agent. So anytime that you start to have chat with the agent, that is when the end user credentials are actually passed, and we kind of go and vet whether you have access to the agent or no. The second piece is, does having agent access is equal to data access? No. Specific to Looker, there is the access data permission. Specific to BQ, there is a BQ user role. And we make sure that all of these essentially are needed in order to get access to the data and have a Q&A. I've already answered the third one. We do not use any data for customer training. And does Gemini see my customer data? The metadata, yes, in terms of when you keep, so there are multiple times that we call Gemini in the flow, and that is when we do go back and pass metadata and information to the LLM. Okay, this is another one of the slides that I pulled into the flow right now before the demo. So to quickly give you all context here, we are creating, or let's say Gemini Data Analytics is the alias for a multitude of agents that we are creating in the whole landscape right now. So we are going to look today at the conversational analytics agent, but there is also data engineering agents, there are data science agents, and then there is the whole playbook with frameworks for developers and for the entire DevRel community. We are trying to make sure that you're able to easily spin up the API from an MCP server, have all of the flexibility that comes with the agent development kit, and also enabling agent-to-agent conversations to there. So the obvious design choice over here is to meet users where they are, to meet developers where they are, and to enable you all to get started to create agents in the entire data and analytics landscape, in the entire data cloud landscape. This is how I like to put it. Okay, we'll do a quick demo. I am going to be shifting my screen. So give me a second, and we have a data set today that is essentially a Looker embedded dashboard. Now, this dashboard is an e-com data store, and I'm going to ask a few simple questions, and let's see how the whole behind the scenes of the agent is constructed. Do watch out for two parts that we discussed. One is how we understand the schema and how we construct the query. So I have a few ready questions, and my first one is like, which are top 5 cities where most orders come from? This is a global data set. Now, we see carefully and go stitch back to the architecture that we had seen earlier. The agent is now trying to connect to the data source. In terms of the context, and I'll show it later, the only context that we've given it right now is to think like an analyst. I've kept it pretty simple, but what you can also do is you can go ahead and define it very elaborate in terms of different dimensions and metrics of the data source.
Hey,
so in this, yeah, Richard.
Just want to do a quick time check. I know we have another demo and want to make sure that 66 Degrees can talk, and I want to save a little bit of time for questions. So we may just want to be aware of that. Sorry, it's probably my fault for taking up too much time up front.
No, I think I took most of the time afterwards, but I'll quickly try to wrap this up in 2 questions and another few minutes. So this is clearly how what we wanted to depict is we can generate the query and we can come up with the answer set over here. And in a lot of cases, what we can simply do is give it an instruction to populate this data in a chart. And if I tell it to show me this data in a bar chart, it is going to do the needful as well. So I'll not take more time, and while this happens, giving you folks a quick glimpse of the demos and tools open source kit that we've published. You will have access to this. Matt or Snigdha would be circulating that. And this is where you should go ahead and get started. Also, a quick link to our collabs in on Git, and these also help you get started. It actually takes you to the whole end-to-end methodology of how do you work with different methods over here. And to wrap up and quickly come back, I gave it an instruction to create a bar chart, and the agent was able to do that as well. Now, this is just very tip of the surface. As analysts, we expect users to go very deep into this, and that's the whole construct of it. Steve, I'll hand it over to you. You can go ahead and demo the quick start, and then we can move to the partner connect of the meet. Steve, are you around? Okay. Richard, maybe you want to go a step further and go on the partner spotlight and come back to the demo.
Yeah, sure thing. I think everyone's gonna be really excited for. Oh, I see Steve.
Hey everybody, I'm here.
Well, Steve, if you want to take over control and show off the demo.
I'm ready. Thank you. Just going to share my desktop here. Everybody see my browser tab there?
Yep.
Okay. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. I'm Steve Walker. I'm part of our Data Cloud product team here at Google. I'm going to walk you through a quick demo of the Quick Start app that we built on top of the Conversational Analytics API. And what you're seeing on the left there are your options when you come into the app. You can chat with the data. You can manage the agents, search for agents, manage the conversations, and also I'm going to do a quick demo on integrating the API with our Google Agent Development Kit in just a minute. For this demo, I'm going to use one of our BigQuery public data sets, which is the FAA data set, and we're going to use the US airports table. I'll walk you through a couple of examples. right, so we're going to select this first question, which is, show me the lowest elevation airport in the United States. I'd also love to see the city and the lat long, if possible. So behind the scenes here in the app, we're going to call the API. It's going to parse my human natural language question and then return the query.
Hey,
There we
Steve,
go.
quick
Yes.
question. If you have a second, I'm having a little trouble viewing this. Could you zoom in just a little bit
Yep.
on that?
Sorry about that.
Thank you. No
Is that
worries.
better? Is
Better,
that,
yes.
is that better?
That's- Yep.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. Someone told me that yesterday. I completely forgot about that. My apology. All right. So we've got a good answer here. It's telling me that the airport in Death Valley National Park, which is in the state of California, is the lowest elevation. Gives me a nice row of information here. One thing I like is it also shows me the sequel the model generated. So I could go run this in BigQuery and it'll give me the exact same answer. We could also grab the information and, for instance, the latitude and the longitude, and we could paste that in Google Maps and confirm that location. All right, so we know the app is using the API. There's the query. Now let's ask another question, and we're looking for a visualization here. What are the top 5 airports in the USA by, excuse me, typo, top 5 states by number of airports. Let's run that. Takes about 10 seconds-ish. Okay, so we got a good answer. Texas is the correct answer, and Florida, California. Alaska has a ton of airports because you have to fly a lot of places. There are a lot of roads, parts of Alaska, and Pennsylvania. Now, I did run this query before I joined this meeting. It did give me a really good chart. That is not the chart I wanted. However, not a problem. Let's ask the agent if it'll be nice and give us a nice bar chart.
Yeah, Steve, I think because the agent's aware of its ability and we missed a check on the bar chart, it says, hey, I've already got it for you. But
Okay, that's fine. Let me just rerun the question, and I'll just ask it again. No problem.
We can give it one try, Steve, and otherwise we can assume the LLM is choosing to be witty today.
You got it. Okay, we're just going to keep going here.
No worries. I think we got a gist in the previous one as well. We understand that there is ability to create visualizations across a few types. But yeah, so it's still a lot of work I feel that we are doing. And I'll stick with the fact that we are in preview and a lot of these iterations would be improving in the future.
Okay, so let me continue with this really quickly. So we know that we called the API and we got a correct answer as far as the number of airports, the location of the lowest elevation airport. Now I'd like to demonstrate asking some questions that the API does not and should not know the answer to, and then we're going to walk through how we can enable that answer correctly. So if we ask the model,
Hey, Steve, I
Yeah.
just wanted to do a quick time check. We also have our partner 66 Degree Talking.
Sure.
So in 2 minutes, we can pass it on to him. Thank you, Steve.
okay, I'm going to move really fast then. That happens to be my specialty. Okay, I'm going to rerun that question. Now show me the lowest elevation airport. I'm going to ask it one follow-up question, and I'm going to show you how to integrate this with Google ADK. So if I ask it, what is the address of the airport that it just gave me, it's going to tell me it doesn't know, because it doesn't know that information is not in the table of data in BigQuery. That's perfect. So it's actually exactly what we wanted to get, because your data, you should have control over that, and it should not be in our models, and it is not. Now, to solve that, you can actually quite easily add Gemini to your model. We'll make that a cute little agent here, and then we can ask the same question. I'm going to grab that question. I'm going to ask the question again. Okay. And what is the complete address? Okay, thank you. So we got an answer now. We know it's interacting with Gemini. Let's ask a follow-up question. What is the address of the closest Starbucks to the airport? A question we all need to know the answer to. Oh, fantastic. I have no idea where El Centro, California is, but it did answer our question. Great. So we're interacting with Gemini. You can, one of the things that I wanted to mention, didn't get the chance to address is you can actually add 10 different tables to your data agent with the API. You don't have to query just one, and if you provide the correct context, then the model does a great job of joining those tables, asking those queries, and giving you the results that you were looking for. Okay, I'm going to stop and pass it back over. Thanks, everybody.
All right, and I think I can hop in there. Let me share my screen.
And as Matt is pulling that up, just want to share though. So Matt's the VP of Data Analytics with 66 Degrees, just one of the awesome partners of Google Cloud. Has done a ton of work helping his customers, dozens of them, working with the conversational analytics API and aligning it with their business needs. So thanks so much for being here, Matt. Excited to hear what you've built so far.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'm going to try and abbreviate a bit here as well, so that we can try and get to some questions here. First and foremost, thanks for the opportunity for letting me speak here with you all today. Here is the obligatory who we are slide from a 66 perspective. I'll highlight by saying here at 66, our core belief is that we are shaping the future of work by harnessing the power of data and AI. What we truly envision is the future of work being an AI-powered enterprise, right? These organizations, they're embracing AI, they're embracing a data-driven culture and providing data-driven insights to really empower their human-centered workforce and make work easier for those team members to conduct. The first thing that I want to dive into really quickly is to highlight the main way that I really think about utilizing conversational analytics. I think first and foremost, there are the examples where we've seen that provide some form of consumer, even that consumer being a business user, that Q&A style interaction, right? But where I really want to take this technology and what we've done in a lot of conversations, a lot of POCs, is actually evolving it to address a really big problem that's existed in enterprise analytics for years, and that's called the last mile problem. This last mile problem refers to a critical gap between producing insights and then actually being able to utilize them to take effective action and accomplish business outcomes. An organization can invest countless resources into building and perfecting their data landscape, developing beautiful reporting assets, beautiful applications. But if the consumers of the information don't understand what actions they should take, upon reviewing those insights, all they've really done is generate crisp retrospective reportings are a pretty tool, right? So I'll kind of summarize here by where I think a big portion of the problem exists is that frequently analytic assets that get created, they really stop at reporting, right? They're depending on a human to really interpret those findings and figure out what they need to do with that information and enact any next steps in downstream applications. I'll cover this, again, I'm going to abbreviate here a bit. I'll cover this in a subsequent slide. I first want to highlight a particular use case, and I chose this use case for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, we've seen a lot of examples where we're typing in and getting Q&A type feedback from these agents, but I wanted to talk through one of the agents that were highlighted in that multi-agent workflow. The data agents for developers, right, where we're using the conversational API, where conversational analytics API, where we're utilizing A2A frameworks in the agent development kit. A common problem that actually has a horizontal application here is that with organizations, in the case of global supply chain optimization, I want to focus on a particular organization that's vertically integrated global retailer. They were handling much of their own manufacturing of finished goods, but they also had to source from external nearshore and offshore partners to handle any excess demand that exceeded their production capacity. Now, one of the main reasons when we were discovering, with this client, they had an efficiency problem. There's a large number of factors to be considered when they're attempting to plan where they should outsource their production to. Factors such as lead times, transportation costs, manufacturing costs, setup fees, penalties. There's tariffs to consider. The list goes on. There's a large number. I think we identified about 25 different parameters or factors that really influence a decision on how they parse up their orders and figure out where to produce them. This is all compounded then by the fact that all the analysis is being manually conducted. They're hitting various and disparate data sources. The information's constantly changing on them. So if they're taking time to perform their analysis, the information is outdated by the time they've produced some type of result. Capacities are constantly changing for their partner manufacturing facilities, as well as any number of external factors like weather, current events and news, et cetera. So all of this ultimately impacts the bottom line of their business. And unfortunately, it's an area where, they would invest weeks of time to go back and forth between departments to make sourcing decisions and do their best, to create sourcing plans that somehow considered impacts to their margin. So the goal for our scenario here was to really design a system that took over the very complex multi-factor decisioning process, utilizing agents and data agents as part of a multi-agent workflow to prescribe and eventually take semi-autonomous action on really what the best possible sourcing scenario was to maximize their realized margins. So ultimately, I'll flash up here what the end-to-end process looks like, but then I want to dive deeper into what we are doing with those data agents. So, this end-to-end construct here, if you're looking, we start out by having some form of trigger mechanism. That's not really important to the process. What's really important to the process is that we're using data agents as kind of a collection mechanism. And we can prescribe, having things like hard-coded SQL, but what we're missing out on is the interpretation capabilities of the conversational analytics API, the ability to do more advanced analysis through period over period transformations, anomaly detection and correlation analysis. We're ultimately leaning on those data agents to pull a ton of information together, both from structured and unstructured sources. Then we're shifting over to an additional agent called a synthesis agent that's combining all of the different and disparate information, the insights that we have from both of these structured and unstructured sources to really, define that concise and helpful insights across the larger enriched data landscape that we've pulled together. Once we have all of those insights and assets at our disposal, we shift to a planning agent that's really now working on prescribing that next best action, right? They're taking all of those insights and developing out a work plan for a consumer of the information. It could be an analyst, could be a demand planner, to ultimately start to take action on. We have the ability then to call upon our action agents, right? These are agents that either they're configured to provide insights into these the actions that we want to take. It could be communication, where we're providing context, sending alerts, summaries to relevant stakeholders. The logistics team, the sellers, notify them really any new plans or potential risks to existing. We have the ability at this point to write back directly into systems rather than, making this a game of telephone, from the analysts to the actual data entry teams. We can write back directly into their ERPs and produce new production schedules, create purchase orders, even adjust inventory forecasts. And then ultimately, we have the ability to automate workflows into partner systems, right? Building things like contingency plans or sourcing information to an alternate provider if capacity drops unexpectedly or there's some relevant unforeseen event in weather or news forecasted. Diving back a bit, I want to dive slightly deeper into the look at the data agents, right? Talking about the ways that we can interact with these to pull information to inform this end-to-end process, right? So we're utilizing that conversational analytics API to get at some very specific information. These could be accessing, what our existing orders look like, any planned or forecasted orders that we expect will impact our capacities, both in our manufacturing facilities as well as our partner manufacturing facilities. We want to pull those capacities so that we're aware of how can we divvy up our orders across these different systems. Again, taking note of all of those relevant factors that I mentioned, like transportation costs, setup fees, penalties, et cetera, things that impact margin. And then ultimately, the real power, as I mentioned, that we're leaning on here is that we can take advantage of some more of those advanced features to do analyses like period over period, understand, if we made decisions in the past, are we making a similar decision, and how did the outcome of those decisions result, in similar scenarios of the past? We can use forecasting capabilities and anomaly detection on this structured data to really identify those trends and ways in which, we're going to be impacted by things like capacity changes. We also have the ability here to tap into unstructured data. Now, this may not be utilizing the conversational analytics API directly. This would be another type of data agent, but we're using that information, to process texts like things coming from email, like hitting supplier communications or global news feeds. But ultimately, this is the unstructured information that we're marrying into our enterprise data to provide a more enriched perspective on what this analysis needs to account for. So ultimately, what we did there, is from that end-to-end perspective, as part of a proof of value, we were able to really show a process that took 3 weeks, right? If you think about the big batch orders that they were processing seasonally throughout the year, the process took about 3 weeks per order. So 3 weeks per quarter. And they ultimately, what we were able to do was build a process that brought that overall runtime down to about 15 minutes. So 3 weeks down to 15 minutes with a 2-hour meeting where they reviewed the outputs and results in order to validate, right? Keep that human in, validate, what the system was essentially advising them would produce the most positive margin output from this end-to-end system. So ultimately, I think I did that as quickly as I could. I wanted to highlight for all of you, this type of process that we undergo. We like to get in front of, our clients, in front of prospects, to really have a conversation about what their ecosystem looks like, where we think some of these agentic workflows, can provide value within your ecosystem. We love to show people the things that we've built, both production capacities as well as utilizing tools like the conversational analytics API still included. We really like to engage in these half-day innovation labs. This whole use case that I just went through was actually defined in one of those labs where we were able to show that significant value that this tool is going to be able to bring to them once we're able to productionalize that. And then ultimately, we want to help you get hands-on with this information, right? We don't want to build something in a black box and send it over to you and say, trust us, it works. We want to help you along that journey. So we go through these jump starts where we're both rapidly deploying some of these proofs of values, utilizing templates and best practices that we've compiled over the last few years, being launch partners for some of these various capabilities, but also provide that hands-on training and enablement and knowledge transfer so that you confidently understand what the system's doing and take ownership over the technology. And that's it from me. Richard, I'll pass it back to you.
Awesome. And I know we're at time, everyone. We are at truly the last two slides, and I do think they're probably the most important. We want to make sure we send this out. But thank you so much, Matt, for telling us a little bit about the journey, a little bit about the value you're seeing already, to Steve, to Piyush for some of these demos. But just to bring it home and make sure we land everything here. We've got real focus on the near-term roadmap here. A ton of the questions I saw are, how can I start using these agents within ADK? How can I get more power within multiple explorers? How can I start rolling this out in my organization? So one of the top focuses right now is getting all of the necessary horizontal compliance. I'm gonna mute someone. I think I'm getting kickback. There we go.
I just did it. You're good.
Thanks so much. So a ton of focus here on all of that enterprise security you know and love from Google, first and foremost, right? Getting us clearly on this path to GA soon by end of year. Next up is agent sharing, right? We know that you don't want to have just answers for yourself. You want to empower a much larger team. All right, as we saw, live demos are always a little bit risky. We've got a little bit of work to do on getting those consistent answers that improve stability and usability, making sure we work with private IP Looker instances, which actually may already be out, but coming very, very shortly, if not already. Some chart quality, always kind of working on hill quality, and then respecting those always filters that we know are baked into LookML. And very soon that support for multiple explorers. So a lot of the questions that we just took on. And last but not least, the ways to really get involved here, right? We've seen a ton of excitement. I think this is one of the largest community webinars we've done. A ton of questions we're going to take back, we're going to answer, we're going to blast back out to the community. We're going to make sure we update our docs. But we have, when we share this out, a getting started guide. We have API references. We have reference quick start apps. We have code snippets. We have best practices and prompting guides from kind of the hard-won battles of how do you get accurate, consistent answers from the agent. And you can sign up right now, pull out your phones, get the QR code. We'll also send out the direct link to sign up, get enabled on the preview. Again, we're opening it up to everyone very, very soon, but want to get this group up and running as fast as possible. And then a ton of great questions. Again, we don't want to answer shallowly. We want to have much deeper conversations with you, with the product team, with UX research. So get in touch with us at our feedback email, and we'd be glad to go quite a bit deeper. And with that, I think we've come to the end, but I'll pass it back to Matt for any last final words.
No, I want to thank you all so much for joining this webinar. This has been fantastic. This is the largest community webinar that I've started since we just started about 3 webinars ago here for some new community stuff. Again, for those of you that are asking questions, we will do a great job with the recap email for you. The recap email will have all the links you've seen above, getting you started. We'll have the interest form to sign up for the preview and all the necessary docs that are needed for you. And then also, this is a continuing engagement. We're going to be working on with the team to see if we can do more of these sessions. I'll be pulling Richard's arm there to get him to do more of these webinars for us. And then also I'll have a link to our BI Customer Council. For those of you that are not part of our BI Customer Council, we meet every single month and we do great sessions like this, but a little bit more in depth. So I'll be sending links to that too. I also want to give a special thanks to Matt. Matt, we really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to present and share with us. And we'll also have a link to some of the forms for Matt to get in contact with Matt if you have questions on their quick starts and how to use them. And then also for Steve, who I think is still on the call. Steve, thank you for your demo. We appreciate it. And that's it for me, everybody. I will look forward to seeing more of you in the next sessions that we have, and keep an eye out for some updates that we'll be sharing with all the recaps and all the links for you.